It's always interesting when we get an updated re-release in the Studio series. Will it be better than the one that came before? Will it be worse? What's different overall? And is it worth buying again? Welcome one and all to the display case. I'm Nate, and today we're looking at Transformers Studio Series, Perceptor, Ratbat, and Ramhorn, all in a Voyager set. And this is the first purchase that I've got that's part of the new subline of Studio Series, the MTMTE collection, which stands for More Than Meets the Eye. As such, the box art on these are a little bit different. We have the normal setup, Transformers down the bottom, with some beautiful artwork on the right, and then the step counter and a couple of badges on the left. That artwork is then mirrored on the left side of the box, which is then all of it surrounded by this really nice red line work. On the back of the box, we have the usual renders of the characters in their alt and bot modes, or in this case, animal modes, as well as a screenshot from the movie and a short description of what Perceptor's doing in the scene that these characters are from. When you take this guy out of the box for the first time, the tooniness and the vibrancy hits you almost immediately. I think with the More Than Meets the Eye collection, Hasbro have gone back at previous releases and thought, how can we make these better? How can we cater these to a specific audience for the Studio series? And I think with Perceptor, that's exactly what they've done here. Almost everything on him is improved from the previous release. And that level of quality carries over into the cassette bots as well. Probably more Ramhorn than Ratbat, but we'll get into that later. To me, the set feels like it's had enough thought put into it that it's more than just a cash grab and it offers actual value. Now for accessories, Perceptor does only come with the one, and it is the blaster that he came with in his previous release. Interestingly though, it is slightly upscaled. It's a lot harder to put into his hand this time. Then he comes with Ratbat and Ramhorn. These have removable pieces on them that can be transformed into accessories or weapons for any Autobot or Decepticon. And while they do look fine and serviceable on Perceptor, I do prefer them on the cassette bot's owners. So here they are with Soundwave and Blaster looking a lot more natural. So something I found is that it's really hard to show where this figure excels without giving him something to compare to. So we're going to do a quick comparison with the previous release, Perceptor in Deluxe Class from Studio Series. Immediately I'm realizing, and this is something that's really hard to convey on camera, but the red on the new one is a lot more vibrant than it was before. And that goes for the blue as well, which was a lot more pale in the last release. But besides the more obvious color changes, there is another change they've made that is easier to miss unless you have them together, and that is the chest piece behind the window. What they've done with this new one is kind of hit two birds with one stone. On one hand, they've filled in Perceptor's back with a flap that you can open and tuck his head under, but to do that, they've actually gone and widened the entire piece, which you can see in this comparison shot. I think this actually makes up for the whole purchase. Not only have they filled in his back, but they've also made him a lot more show accurate and movie accurate by giving him more filled out proportions. This also makes him fit in better with the rest of the more recent Studio Series releases that have more of that toony look. Speaking of comparisons, let's see how the new Ratbat compares to its War for Cybertron Siege counterpart. Besides the backpack accessory, I really like the new magenta shade of plastic they've chosen over the previous purple. They've also given him more paint apps on his face and chest, but unfortunately there are no paint apps at all on his cassette mode. Given the Siege version was pretty good by itself, I'm happy with them just adding some paint apps in the backpack. Ramhorn is also pretty good, even if he is a little bit simplistic. His mouth can't open or close, unfortunately, but his paint apps and articulation are enough to keep him dynamic in the display. And of course, it's always nice to have another member of Blaster's cassette team in the collection. And that goes for Soundwave as well. It is amazing to finally have a full and accurate set of Soundwave's cassette bots. Now, Perceptor's articulation is actually pretty good for a figure of his size. He's got a ball joint in his head that can rotate from side to side, look up and down with a little bit of tilt, a ball jointed shoulder that can go out 90 degrees and rotate all the way around, a mushroom joint bicep swivel, and an elbow joint that can go up to 90 degrees. His hands can also kind of tilt in, but it's more for the transformation, so I wouldn't really count it here. Perceptor also has a waist swivel that can go a full 360 degrees, hips that can go forwards, backwards, and 90 degrees out to the side, as well as a generous bend in the knee that goes well over 90 degrees, and a thigh swivel. Last but not least, we have a 90-degree bend at the ankle. And just like the original release, Perceptor has a hole in his backside that perfectly fits a display stand. Now, I'm not quite sure how many really dynamic poses you're going to be getting Perceptor into, but it's still nice to have for the odd running pose. Now, I always like Perceptor because, like Blaster, his transformation turns him into an everyday object. Well, not quite every day, but you get what I mean. I think I wish that this transformation was a little bit more clicky. Everything was really smooth, and instead of ASMR, it just kind of felt weird. But hey, we got there in the end. Here is Perceptor in his microscope mode, and Ramhorn and Ratbat in their cassette modes. Now, the cassettes are pretty self-explanatory. Unfortunately, they don't have a lot of paint, if at all, on their cassette bodies, but for me, that's okay, because I'm primarily going to have them in their animal modes. And as the cassettes are self-explanatory, so is Perceptor. Everything that sort of is good about his robot mode carries over into his microscope mode. He also has a little bit of articulation. His scope can tilt down and up with a satisfying ratchety click, and sort of untab to look up like he does in the movie when surveying all the Decepticons. You can also see all the improvements they've made over the last release, the Deluxe Perceptor. On top of making the chest piece and microscope tray opaque, they've also changed the paint apps on the scope, as well as added a second, more line-worked and cartoony Autobot symbol sitting below where it was before. The linework detail underneath the chest piece is also slightly different. I think the only thing that the original does better is have blue paint on the underside of his hands. The new one just keeps it a neutral grey, and I went back and watched the movie. The blue is actually accurate, so I wish they had added that extra paint app. Being the same mold, they have kept the stationary artillery mode. This was a mode that never appeared in the cartoon, but was a leftover piece from the G1 toy. I honestly never really cared for it because it never appeared in the cartoon, but I guess it's a legacy mode that Perceptor as a toy can't go without. I'll tell you, I was not expecting to love this set as much as I do. Perceptor was like the annoying glue holding the team together in the '86 movie, and I was perfectly content with the last figure offering that we got in the deluxe class. But with the vibrant colours, the opaque window, and the better paint job with the wider chest, I just couldn't pass this guy up, not to mention the two cassette bots. And I think it's truly won me over. I'm actually looking at this bot right now on my desk and thinking, yeah, that was really worth it. And if that's what the More Than Meets the Eye collection is all about, then I'm fully on board. And totally can't wait to see what they do next. I would love a retooled Jazz, or even a Blur. That would be incredible. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you like my content, feel free to check out my channel, like, subscribe, or even comment down below with your own thoughts. I look forward to seeing them. Thanks again, and we'll catch up soon.